Today we are going to go through ticket statuses. This is the third call in the series of trainings. So we go to configuration, tickets, and then statuses. So within the statuses, the significance of the sequence is that we are building out the desired flow of how we want our tickets to be worked. Going down the line, we are going to be building these and limiting these per ticket type. So in Halo PSA, we only have one list of statuses. So using our status matrix can really help plan for the statuses for our recommended teams of finance, HR, service delivery, and quoting. So within the statuses, we add a reopen status as number one, always. And our recommended configuration, if you click on that, the status name should be reopened. The status icon text is what shows up when it's on the service desk within the colors. Our sequence and list is always going to be number one because I want that to show up first. Should I sort by statuses? And I like to make this a bright red to make sure that it stands out. As we move down into the SLA, the SLA hold action dictates whether we put it on hold, remove it from hold, or do nothing. We can further set it by the action as whether we're sending SLA hold reminders to the client, which states that yes, we need more information from them to continue working the ticket. We can set the working hours until the SLA auto release. And what that's referring to is that after, say, 24 hours, we're going to release the hold and start the SLA clock again. This isn't a recommended setting for a number of reasons. There are use cases for this, but not when it comes to service delivery. And we want to make sure that once the user updates the ticket, it does release it from the SLA hold, meaning the user has responded back to whatever we asked, and the ticket is now waiting on us. So the SLA clock still should be ticking. As we move further down into the email settings, as we go live, and even after go live, I don't generally recommend sending emails to the agent, the team, or the team manager if the status hasn't been changed after so many hours. We can do that on a recurring basis. We can set automations up within the workflow to do that. You do need a custom email template, and the variables that we pull in must be within the field list for us to pull it in on the ticket. Once we go down to the miscellaneous settings, we can select whether it's shown in the quick status dropdown or not. So if I go to the ticket and in the right-hand column, it says ticket status, I can select what statuses are shown in that dropdown. Is reopen status best to be shown in the quick status dropdown? No, it's not. So this is about fine-tuning the statuses that are impactful for our business, tell the story of where the ticket is at quickly, and determines whether we're sending SLA hold reminders and whether the SLA clock is running. So we're going to select edit at the top. We don't want to send SLA hold reminders on this, so we're going to remove from SLA hold if it isn't on hold. We're going to scroll down, and the show status and drop down is disabled, so nobody can just select reopened, which means that it's going to be system use. And we're going to hit save. Let's go back out. Now, we do have an on hold status that is typically within Halo out of the box. And the reason why we remove the on hold status and highly recommend that our clients do as well is because on hold status tends to get forgotten. Today, we will remember that it is on hold for maybe November 1st, given today is October 2nd. Next week, we're going to just remember that it's on hold in November. The following week, we just look at the ticket and say, oh, it's on hold, and we skip down to the next list. And we do that moving forward. So on hold status essentially becomes invisible to not only the techs, but the leaders too. Until somebody looks at the ticket and says, why is this ticket open for 45 days? It's on hold. So what are the other statuses that can be used for on hold? Brian.
What are the other statuses that can be used for on hold? Waiting client?
Waiting client is one. What are other reasons out there why a ticket could be placed on hold? Joseph. If we're scheduling, if the client says, I need this done in November, it should be on a scheduled fixed status. And it should be scheduled for November so that we don't lose track of the ticket. There's always a reason behind the hold. Getting granular about what that is important. I want to touch on the 3 system use statuses within Halo PSA. The first one is vendor responded. And we know that let's go back out. Can you go to waiting vendor? Out of the box, waiting vendor is called with supplier. We change it to waiting vendor, and I know it's system use because there's no delete button at the top. If we escalate to supplier using the action to escalate to supplier, it must be in a waiting vendor status for that response to come back into the ticket. I'm going to have you go back out. The other system use is resolved, and the use case behind resolved. First, resolved has to be enabled under the general ticket settings to enable the end user confirmation. Once that's enabled, the resolved status is going to show. We changed ticket template 327 to say ticket's been resolved. We'd like you to confirm. This is a really soft way to say we believe that the ticket's resolved and we want you to tell us that the problem's resolved. This is both good for the client and for the technician. So when we send that out, we use dollar variables of $ deny closure, $ confirm closure. And those two dollar variables will only be able to be clicked when it is in this resolve status. And the way that we can tell that this is system use, Brian, if you click in, is because there is no delete button at the top. The third system use status is closed. There is only one true closed status in Halo PSA. And a lot of clients coming in from Autotask or ConnectWise have additional closed statuses to identify that it was closed because it was canceled or it was closed automatically. And we can set this, but it's going to be with a custom field. And it's going to be called closure confirmation or closure reason. By default, we have that set up already in the opportunity area. But that's how we can really tell that why it was closed. Now, I do want to go through this list of statuses and use cases just so that we're all on the same page. So if you could scroll up to the top. And understand that this is not a complete list of statuses that we have. We also have statuses for HR, which is bringing in applications. We also have statuses for quotes. So reopen status means that it was either in pending closure and or fully closed, and the clients responded to the ticket to reopen. New is simply that. Vendor responded means that the suppliers responded back to us. Scheduled status is typically used on a project. The in progress should be used whenever we're working actively on a ticket. The client updated or client responded is when the client has responded to the ticket and now the ball is in our court. Qualified is a sales status. Quote raised versus quote sent. Quote raised means that I prepared it. It's ready to send. But I haven't either had the conversation yet with the client to send it, or I preemptively created the quote so that when I do need to send it, it's already prepared for us. A great use case for us is that when we get a new onboarding for Halo PSA, we generate two quotes, one for our tools admin packages, and the second one for the post onboarding consulting. That way, when the time comes, everything is already ready for us to send that out to the client. Maybe add some minor tweaks to the scope of work post onboarding, but for the most part, it's ready. Scheduled tentative means that we can work on it today at any given point in the day, versus a scheduled fixed means that the client is expecting us to work the ticket at the exact time or hour that we said. Waiting client puts it on SLA hold. Waiting vendor puts it on SLA hold. Waiting approval puts it on SLA hold. Approved, rejected are both the approval process. And then the awaiting change review is specifically used in change management. Scoped is used within projects. And then the resolve status is to send the client a message to say, hey, would you like to resolve this ticket? Now, variations is that some clients don't want a two-step close, and that's great. We simply use the system use completed status, and it's not system use. It's in there by default. Typically, if we've got a two-step close, we're going to remove the completed status so that we can use the proper result. Now, we will have to go into the actions in a minute to make sure that those defaults are set appropriately. But does anybody have any questions on statuses? An additional thought here is that statuses should be color coded in a meaningful way. So statuses that are new or actionable should be green, while statuses that are closed or resolved should be black. So new status, client responded, vendor responded, those are all on us. It's running the SLA clock. I would change those to green. Scheduled fixed. Actually, scheduled fixed should be a different color to identify that yes, it is scheduled and it's at a fixed time, so we need to be cognizant of that while we're working our tentative tickets around it. Now, where does this show up is in the service desk. It is easier as a service delivery manager or a business owner to look at a group of tickets at a high level and see where each one is in the process simply by color. Does that make sense? After we go into statuses, we go into actions. Actions in Halo PSA dictate how a ticket is worked. It is our core belief that all ticket types, with the exception of project task and project risk should have a workflow with actions available that dictates how we work the ticket. It's more than just a workflow. It's about adherence to our working ticket process. So if our process is to triage the ticket and then dispatch the ticket and then work the ticket, then we may have 2 workflow steps with actions that are allowed at each step. So we're going to focus on triage today. The purpose of triage is to ensure the ticket details are correct. So click on triage. And I'm going to have you select edit because it's a lot easier for us to look at the settings when they're in edit mode. The outcome description and the button name should be similar. The only reason that I would change an outcome description or add anything to it is if it was for a different cause. So you'll notice as we get into the reopened statuses, they're named reopen first, reopen second, reopen sales, reopen opportunity. And that's because the default's defaulting the team that it's being reopened to. That's why we have so many reopens. Now, the button name is what everybody sees at the top of the ticket. So typically I'll have the outcome description, maybe it's triage sales or triage service delivery, but the button name to everybody else is just going to be triage. So it looks no different on the front end to the team, but on the back end, when we're setting it up, it's a whole lot easier to identify what actions we actually need. The sequence in the list is significant because as we teach Halo PSA, we teach to work the tabs and the actions from top to bottom, left to right. The only place that gets wonky is in tickets and billing. But anyway, including with the integrations, especially with the integrations, the sequence is important. So in Autotask, when it says import companies, then import users, then import, it's there for a reason. Same thing with QuickBooks Online, but the same thing with Triage. So we always work this from left to right. As we teach our teams to go live, the buttons will show up at the top, like where the save, access, control, clone, and delete buttons are. And we teach our teams to work these left to right. Once we get into workflows, which is next, if these aren't sequenced properly, which may seem minimal to most, we now have to go searching for the actions we need versus just checking them off in the order of operations in which they are, which presents for a cleaner workflow. The button icon I use is significant. Typically, I like to think of a brick wall between the sales area and the service delivery area. And I use a paper plane to indicate if this action is sending it to a different team. We can use colors as well, but it's a lot more fun to use the button. We always want to make, the only reason that we would make an action button invisible is if we are trying to put it as an automation. We have the ability to make this visible outside of workflows, or if it's only visible within workflows. Scroll down just a little bit to the action settings. System use actions, there's a slew of them and a knowledge base article that explains the use case. Some of these may be to create a child ticket. This may be to start a journey, end journey, arrive on site, leave site. The significance of a quick action will remove or enable the list of fields that need to be selected or filled out at any given stage. So Brian, can you go ahead and click is a quick action? And I want you to notice that the field list disappears. So what this means is that it's going to take all of the defaults that we set throughout the course of this action, and it'll just execute with no additional input from the end user or from the technician. I'm going to have you uncheck this because I do want a list of fields filled out. We have options at the bottom, whether we want to show the send email option or text message, whether we want to hide it from the end user or release the SLA hold. Typically, I don't enable these on unless there's a significant reason to enable it. Under the defaults, the status after action. After we hit this button and hit save, this is the status that's going to show up on the ticket. This is great because when we triage the ticket, what do we want that status after the action to be? Typically, it goes into assigned status after triage. So can you please change that to assigned? If there is no assigned, we need to go in and add one. All right. Right click on configuration. All the way to the left. Right click on configuration. Open in a new tab. Oh, that didn't work well. All right. Statuses. We're going to put assigned.
There it is. Open a new tab.
Yeah, open it in a new tab. Tickets, statuses. Add. Nope. I'd like you to add a new status here.
Tickets status.
New. My arrow's on it. And it may be under our faces. Click new. This is going to be assigned. The sequence is going to be 6. Our color is going to be green because it's actionable. The SLA hold. We're going to remove it from hold if on hold. I do not want to send SLA hold reminders on the status. User update should update the SLA hold. Scroll all the way to the bottom and hit save. Great. Now let's go back into the action.
You want me to go back to the tab? That's
Yes, please. And I want you to click actions. Triage. Edit. Scroll down. Status after action is assigned. Let's disable the auto release prompts. Scroll down. Our response behavior is telling the system, do we want to mark this ticket as responded to, which stops the SLA response time after this action's been completed. if you remember back to our last call, what is a response? A response is never an automated email. They got that when they opened the ticket, right?
Mhm.
So do we want triage to automatically respond to a ticket? No, we don't. Yes, a human touched it, but the client needs to be notified of either a scheduling or, given the chance to schedule, ask additional questions, grab additional details, and that'll respond to a ticket, right? But the client should absolutely be told that we're working on the status of their request. So this is currently in the correct status of do not respond. We do have I'm going to go through a couple of these options real quick. We have the ability to start a new workflow after actions. So as we get into the workflows, you're going to notice that some actions just have it goes nowhere, right? And sometimes that's because we're starting a new workflow, we're applying an approval process. There's a lot of possibilities here as to why there would be no line. Brian, I'm going to have you scroll down. So these parent-child visibility is specifically relating to projects. The skip closure procedure is significant when we go to put in silent close or the closed ticket action. I don't want it to go to resolve status first, which is the closure procedure. I want it to go directly to closed.
So I have
Go ahead.
a question on the visibility for parent and child tickets. Does that mean that we're not able to see that relationship on regular tickets, or does that mean that it's only for project tickets?
So by default, and a very commonly used practice within MSPs is that one ticket contains one problem. So if the client sends in a message that says, I have a problem with my computer, it's slow, my printer won't print, and I need a new mouse and keyboard. In the past, historically, we could create a child ticket for each one of those that comes up to the parent, but Halo stops that. There's no need to create those child tickets anymore. It gets very, very hard to follow because now you have to follow the breadcrumbs as to what is or is not still being worked on. When we're working on a project, I want all child ticket notes to be visible on the parent. And the reason for that is because I want to be able to see the project status as a whole at the parent level. It takes a lot of time to go into each ticket, especially when you have something like a new onboarding ticket, and that new onboarding ticket has 15 to 20 tasks. Well, that's great, but I want to see from a high level vantage point of what was done and what's left. I do that by floating up all of the child notes to the project ticket. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna scroll down. Fun little add-on that Halo has here is that we can alter the name of the submit button. So if I wanted to click log triage here, or Brian, I just want you to type in log ticket details. Capitalize LTD.
Capitalize L.
I want you to capitalize the first letter of each word.
Oh,
And I'll show you where that comes into play in a little bit. That's new. Can you click on, tell me what that says? Ooh. So typically I like my actions opening in a model window. And the reason I like those actions opening in a model window is because if you're on a different tab than progress on the ticket, you actually have to go back and click on the progress tab to see the action fields. Does that make sense? So let's just, for giggles, put that in there. Oh, we've got other options.
more options. Like,
Can we put that like in a medium window?
of course you can.
Excellent. Let's throw that into a medium window and see what that looks like. That's also new. I can see where this can come in handy for emailing our client, seeing the last email that we had. I don't know that how that shows up, but it's definitely something I want to test. Now, clearly, Halo is consistently adding new settings every single day. And when we come across this, when we're working with a client, it's best to just be very upfront of that wasn't there yesterday and kind of make a little bit of a joke on that and let them know that you'll test the functionality of it and you'll get back to them as to whether it's worth doing in their instance. Normally, I make a joke of, ooh, that's new, just like I just did, and they get a pretty good kick out of it 9 times out of 10. We can select whether it's visible to the end user or not. This setting will hide it from the self-service portal. We have a couple of additional functionality here to attach reports and send those to the client. Benefit of this is that when we're doing a business review with a client, we can quickly run the report via an action and send it to them. In my opinion, that's better used as a dashboard or sharing it as a report to the client on the end user portal so they can run it whenever they want. Does that make sense? The AI operation here gives you a few options. Edit, and we have to go back down and make the changes. Scroll up a little bit. Submit button override is going to be log ticket details. And then we are going to open the new action into a model window and a medium window. We're going to scroll down all the way to AI. So click the drop down. So AI within Halo PSA can be connected to one of 3 connectors. Halo's API agent, your own open API, or Azure AI. If none of those 3 are selected, this functionality will not work. Halo is connected to AI via Halo's API, OpenAI agent. We can use AI to generate a user response. Depends on how much you trust AI. At first, AI needs to be trained. AI is a multiplier. It is not a replacement. commonly used is to improve the agent note. Now, this is generally used with send email. And it's a great feature to clean up grammar or spelling or help you even reword it. If you are using this functionality, please fully encourage your client to preview the OpenAI ChatGPT response before saving the action. We want to make sure that we're not blindly sending these reactions or interactions without understanding what they are, especially in the beginning stages where your AI is not trained. Actions can default a number of things. The most common is whether or not we're going to send an email or a text message. Whether the default communication method is by email, text. Can you click on that drop-down box, please?
Mm-hmm.
Or automatic, depending on. So our email template here, we can select the email templates that are already set up under the email settings. So if you click on the drop-down box, Halo lists it as the template title. So if we're creating this to close a ticket, we're going to use ticket closed as an email template. But we may want to update the client that triage has happened, right? Sometimes that looks like, I believe there's a status updated. Can you type in status? We have a status changed option, which is great to use after triage. But just because we can doesn't mean we should. How much communication is too much communication? Some clients want to know that a human being has been notified. Others don't. I don't disagree that a triage action is important, but I question whether we actually need to send notification to the client, especially because it doesn't dictate a response. So we need to balance what's worth the email and what's not. How much communication is too much? So I'm going to have you click the X button so that we're not filling that out. Just click out.
And go back in.
So if I was going to send this over to sales because it's a sales ticket, I can change my default team here to sales with a default agent who's going to quote the client. That's what I call punting the ticket over the brick wall. Remember, there's a wall between service delivery and sales. In order to move the ticket over, which is recommended for a couple of reasons. If my technician goes out and says the client needs an entirely new laptop, I will typically question why and what we've tried. Is it that the client requested it? And if that's the case, let's get him over. But sometimes when we have junior agents, they may not have troubleshot it fully before offering a new PC. So when we move the ticket in its entirety over to the sales team, we will need to change the team and the ticket type to move it over. And I want it that way because I have full notes of what the agent tried. Further, if an agent kicks it to sales and we realize that it can be fixed with X, Y, or Z and it doesn't require a purchase, it punts the ticket back over the wall to service delivery. So actions have the ability to default ticket types, teams, agents, categories. This takes a lot of thought into what you want it to do. And oftentimes, as we start using the system, we get our wants, needs, and desires list. What do I want versus what do I need? And what do I actually desire for this thing to do? And those are three very different things. I'm going to have you scroll down. If we have a charge rate defaulted on the ticket, we can default the charge type on an action and then override the ticket default for this action. And I'll give you an example. When we email a client, that should be no charge. We're not charging the client for an email, right? So we'll default that to no charge, and the charge type should absolutely override the ticket default. Brian, can you click charge type override? This becomes very, very important throughout the system. We can default the charge type of start journey, end journey, arrive on site, leave site. By default, it's already taking charge on travel time. The default note field is great when we're pulling in values from the field list in a table. So if I want to know what happened during this action, and I have a bunch of fields listed as we do with Triage, if I click submit, those fields are not going to populate on Triage. I can list it in the feed by entering a default note here with the dollar variables. Brian, I'm going to have you scroll down. We can default the start and use timer to automatically start that timer for the duration of the action. Again, we can use this to run AI insights, which requires the AI configuration to be set up and used. AI insights has its own set of fields, and there is a cost to it when you're connecting it to your own OpenAI source or Azure AI source. AI insights are after they start getting trained on your specific industry and client base will provide much better insights to the tickets. The runbook is already created to pour it out to OpenAI and pull in the insights that we tell it to. Scroll down. We can select default fields, whether we want to see the to and the CC. We can override addresses on this, which is very uncommon. This is where we could set that. The button would be like email Halo PSA, and we default that to support at halopsa.com. Scroll down. And the rest of these fields are very uncommon. Let's go to the field lists. And I'm going to have you just hit save on this. and then edit. So field list is the group of fields that you ask your team to fill out when performing an action. We can set these as not required, we could set these as required, or we could set these as read only. Now, this typically comes in rows of 3. So as I'm determining sort order, I want to make sure that the common ones are together. So ticket type and ticket category are only one box. The reassign button is going to be 2. Asset needs to be on its own line. So typically what I would do here move the status up at the top of the box. If you hover over, you're going to see 9 dots.
You see them?
Hover over, click, and move that up to tick right down there, reassign, between reassign and ticket category. So we've got the ticket type, the ticket category, the status, and then on the next line, it's going to be the team, the agent, and the additional agents. I'm going to have you move asset all the way to the bottom. Then it's going to have impact, urgency, priority, and then agreement, billing override, charge rate, then the estimated time and asset. So what I'm doing is making sure that this is in a logical flow. Under the impact, we're going to click the pencil icon. And this is going to be visible and required. We do have dynamic field visibility, which we will absolutely go through at a later date. We're going to click save. Now we teach our team that SLAs are dictated by impact. Is it one user, a group of users, or is it company-wide? And the urgency of low, medium, high, which should be defined by the MSP, which dictates priority. So impact and urgency are required, and priority, I'm going to have you click edit, is visible but read only. And the reason that it's read only is because we have rules in place that will adjust the priority based off of the urgency and impact that is selected. Does that make sense? So actions dictate how a ticket moves throughout our system. It'll dictate how we communicate with our clients and our vendors. And it can have a list of fields that are required to be filled out once the action is completed. This is powerful because we can also use these actions and make them available to the end user on the client portal so that they have to fill out those fields. Before we wrap up, does anybody have any questions on statuses or actions?
I did have one that popped up. If we go back to the defaults and go back to that like AI section,
Brian, can you go back to the defaults and then AI?
Yep. Default in AI was at the bottom. Edit.
um,
Mm, The AI stuff was
All the way at the bottom.
right there.
right here.
So where it says default appointment type reminder, I clicked that button and it gives you like a whole bunch of different options. Is that like a notification? What does that do?
So when we are system use of create an appointment, it'll default the appointment type here.
Okay, that was it.
All right. So next time we're gonna build a workflow together. using the pieces that we've already put together of statuses, actions, and then we will apply the workflow to a ticket type and go through those settings.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.